Detroit's Renaissance Center. For nearly 50 years, it has stood as the tallest building in the state of Michigan and is one of the most recognizable icons for the city of Detroit. A massive complex boasting more square footage than New York City's Rockefeller Center, this towering structure of steel and glass dominates the skyline. It's more than just a collection of buildings. It's an icon that tells the story of Detroit, past, present, and future. It's also a 10-time recipient of architecture's most prestigious honor, the coveted Tyler Wilkie's Favorite Building in the Whole Wide World award, beating the likes of the Burj Khalifa, One World Trade Center, and even the Great Pyramid of Giza. Join me in this 7-part series as I explore the history, legacy, and future of my favorite building. This is the RenCen. Welcome back, I missed you. Today we're continuing our journey through the architectural marvel that is the Renaissance Center. In part 1, which you can go watch here, I discussed the inception and construction of the RenCen. Today in part 2, I'm going to cover the operational life of the complex, including giving you all a little tour. A good place to start for this video is to discuss the design, especially the criticisms. Firstly, and most prominently, was that the building was intentionally fortress-like and had a hostile temperament towards downtown, kind of trying to keep people out. This imposing design, some say, remind them of the Death Star from Star Wars, was mixed with these concrete berms, which were like fortress walls that sent a clear message to the public: stay out. Here's a snippet from John Portman himself. To understand the RenCen, you have to understand the basic situation of Detroit when we started the project. The first time I went, at the request of Mr. Ford, I stayed at the Pontchartrain Hotel. I got out of a taxi, and as I was checking in, I was told not to walk in the streets. If I left the hotel, I had to take a taxi to go to the restaurant. And when I came out of the restaurant, I had to take a taxi back. This was a circumstance in which we found ourselves. Then on the inside, there are some criticisms about the layout itself. John Portman was a fan of what I call areas of discovery. These were supposed to foster interactivity and engagement between public and private spaces. I can definitely see what he was going for, because there are some really cool nooks and crannies that you can find a random seating area or something you've never discovered before while you're wandering around. And there's also these really cool cantilevered balconies that seemingly float in the air. And they do foster this beehive of activity where, a lot of people are working around in separate areas all inside of each other. But the problem with the design is that it's almost that Portman determined how he wanted people to use the building, instead of creating a form that followed the natural behavior and traffic patterns that people would have. The result is that it's very confusing, and I can promise you, at any given moment, there's at least one person that is currently in the building and lost. So the shared podium that we discussed, it allows people to go from tower to tower without ever having to go outside. This podium has everything. Restaurants, shops, and even conference accommodations for the hotel. The primary way to get around is a circulation ring that surrounds the footprint of the hotel tower. It's expected that when you want to go from one part of the complex to the other, you make your way to the circulation ring, and it's just like a roundabout. Take it around until getting off for your stop. In order to traverse levels, there are elevators and escalators. You also have to keep these in mind while navigating, and the combination between finding the right escalator and then the correct path to that escalator, and then how to then get from that path to your destination is quite tricky, especially for first-time visitors. Also not helping is that the Brutalist design features tons of exposed concrete, making the 4 identical office towers surrounding the atrium all look the same. Meaning everything looks identical, and they placed them in a circle, so it's extremely easy to get disoriented and not even know what direction you're facing. I'm no architect, I'm just a little baby, but I can probably say that it's not ideal to have a design that requires a training seminar just to learn how to navigate the building. And then the flow of energy into and out of the city was also non-existent. It acted as an obstacle between the riverfront and the rest of downtown. It discouraged visitors from leaving the complex, or discouraged visitors from the city from entering the complex. Also, before I forget, and this was closed long before I ever stepped foot in the RenCen, but at one point there was a movie theater. Alright, so now let's cover just the history of the building now that it's up and running. So when it opened, the Renaissance Center almost immediately struggled to draw occupants away from the suburbs. Most of the original tenants that were businesses that were already located downtown, who then abandoned their previous office spaces around the city. Ford stepped in to remedy this and agreed to take full occupancy of Tower 200, with smaller tenants taking up a couple of floors here and there in the rest of the facility. The foot traffic for the retail areas in the building was also lower than anticipated, and it never became the bustling mall that was hoped for. And this was how the RenCen spent its first 2 decades. Under capacity, but at a stable equilibrium, until 1996 when General Motors would buy it. Okay, so this is the point of the video where I have to give a disclaimer. I am a GM employee, but I am making this video as a hobby for my personal YouTube channel, and my views are my own. Also, I'm just a little bitty, regular employee, so I've had no parts in these decisions. So, 1996. At the time, GM's headquarters was this gorgeous Albert Kahn building located in the New Center neighborhood of downtown. But it was aging, and the company desired a modernized office space. The CEO of GM at the time, Jack Smith, was persuaded by the mayor of Detroit and wanted to demonstrate GM's commitment to the city. They swept in and purchased the building from Ford for $85 million. To illustrate how much of a bargain this was, the original construction cost was $350 million. If you would adjust for inflation from when the RenCen was built into 1996 when this purchase happened, that cost would have been over $1 billion to make it from scratch. And they got it for $85 million. With the money that they saved by acquiring the building for pennies on the dollar, GM began some renovations that sought to remedy some of the issues that the building had. On the side of the complex facing the river, GM replaced the cement berms with what they called the GM Winter Garden. This massive glass atrium opened up the podium and gave a big sense of airiness while also providing a large indoor gathering space, which is really important for those Detroit winters. The Winter Garden also served to open up the views to the river, and its expansive glass face contains many doors to accommodate a great number of people entering and exiting the building from the riverfront, hoping to spur more public engagement. Then, just in time for Super Bowl 40, which was hosted by Detroit, GM made 2 additional major changes. The first was the installment of a second circulation ring inside of the atrium. This allowed people more freedom to move around the building instead of having to make their way to the very first story to get to the original circulation ring. The sleek glass design also helped modernize the interior and provide visual contrast against the sea of exposed concrete. It doesn't sound like much, but it really helps a ton. In addition to the new circulation ring, they debuted a new 5-story glass entryway. Finally, a front door. This structure faced Jefferson Avenue and gave the public a clear, welcoming access point. Night and day difference from the fortress-like concrete cement walls. It was both a literal and symbolic effort to open up the RenCen to the city. Both of these served to increase the flow from the city to the riverfront and provide greater opportunities for public interaction. GM also added some accents to the exterior of the RenCen, such as the GM logo and some color bands at the top of each tower. These were all updated to be screens now, which gives the building a really cool Tron-like look at night. This is how I'm used to seeing the building, so when I go back and see old photos before they added these things, it looks all naked. And now for our tour portion. So, a few months back, I visited the RenCen with my friend Kayla. Unfortunately, I really messed up the audio with some just amateur mistakes on my microphone. So today, I'm just going to narrate over that footage. But for those of you who are interested, I will be posting a longer form highlight reel from that tour that contains the backup audio from the camera. It's not awesome, but it's a fun little way to look at my day with Kayla. Hi, quick editor's note. I'm editing the finishing touches of this video on a hotel room for a wedding in New Jersey, and I noticed that there is a sock in the corner that has been there the entire video. And who has time to go back and redo that? So I guess I decided to officially make that sock the sponsor of today's video. So shout out to Mr. Saki for his support of the channel.
Today's video is brought to you by Socks. Socks. Wearing your shoes without us? Gross.
Okay, so this is our tour of the Renaissance Center. Quick shout out to my friend Kayla for handling the camera. I started the tour by showing entry points to the building that I would use, including the pedestrian bridge and the people mover station. We walked past the post office and former locations for a Starbucks, CVS, and bank to really highlight how the building had just about everything you could need back in its heyday. Next, we headed to get our first view of the Grand Atrium and second-story glass circulation ring. After showing Kayla the tower that I used to work in, we made our way to the lower floors to catch a glimpse of the food court and the GM World exhibit. The GM World exhibit contains cars from each General Motors brand, including historical cars on the rotating center carousel. On this particular day, one of my favorite concept cars of all time, the Cadillac CL, was on display. Just past GM World is the Winter Garden. We stopped by to show off the large open space and the benefits it brought to the flow of people to and from the Detroit riverfront. We took 2 escalators back up to our way to the Marriott Hotel. In a perfect example of the certain navigational charms of the RenCen, the final escalator we needed was closed, and we had to do a lengthy and winding detour to get back on track. Once at the hotel, I wanted to make a quick look at their 42 Degrees North venue. This room is special to me because it's where I got married last summer. Our final stop of the day was to take the elevator all the way up to the top of the central tower to get cocktails at the Highlands restaurant. A toast and some smiles capped off our day of exploration in Detroit's most famous building. So when I first started working at my company, I worked at the RenCen, and I absolutely loved it. It was so fun to work in the middle of a busy city, being able to see it all, lots of windows when you're going around. So convenient to have all the little things like CVS, banks, post office, you name it, food places that you could just go access quick in the middle of the day without having to leave the building. When the building was full and everyone was walking around, there was tremendous energy, and it was just so awesome. And I truly loved working in that building. This heyday would come to an end with the COVID 19 pandemic. GM relocated many employees to the Technical Center engineering campus. With so many people working from home, it did make fiscal sense to group remaining employees in fewer buildings to save on operational costs such as security and heat and cooling. In 2024, it was announced that GM would leave the building entirely and moved their global headquarters to the brand new Hudson site, which is completing late this year in 2025. Aside from GM leaving, the normalization of hybrid work and remote work has drastically reduced demand for office space nationwide, and Metro Detroit is no different. It is hard to overstate the sheer amount of office space available inside the RenCen. Like I said in part one, there is more space in the Renaissance Center than the entire Rockefeller Center in New York City, and that takes up a full city block and has 19 separate buildings. It was already really hard to fill so many floors with corporate tenants before so many people were working from home, and now that task is monumentally more difficult. Some would say impossible. So much so that ever since about 2020, when the lottery would go above $1 billion, I would buy a ticket with the plan of using my winnings to convert most of the office space to residential. Luckily for me, other people have announced that they're going to do it for me. So if y'all have any new ideas on what I should spend my lottery winnings on, comment down below. The redevelopment plans that have been announced are a little different than what I would have done, but you can tune into part 3 of the series when we'll walk through the proposal in place and discuss the future of this important site. Thank you so much for watching for part 2. Sorry that it took me so long to get part 2 out. As you can see, I rearranged this room because I didn't like the way the backdrop looked. I also have been working on my capstone. It's been busy during the summer. I got a switch. So, thanks for sticking with us, though. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. You stay classy, Michigan.